what you've been looking forward to, Aryama Sundaram versus Mahesh Jethmalani. Now, may I have the preliminary positions of these two distinguished gentlemen, please? We know Mahesh Jethmalani's position, and Mahesh Jethmalani feels, Mr. Sundaram, that it's all clear. This is just politics. Congress wants to use this to divert attention. The indictment is rushed, lacks substance, and also says that specifically there is nothing against Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani and Vineet Jain, which was the sum and substance of the response that the statements they put out today, Mukul Rohatgi and Mahesh Jethmalani. What is your view on this case and the aggressive counter response of the Adani group earlier this morning?
Well, in the first instance, I find it very amusing for it to be said that it's a political vendetta or otherwise. I'm very surprised because I'm sure that they're not alleging that the United States government is involved in a political vendetta against the Indian government. I'm sure that's not the suggestion. The fact of the matter is this. It is no doubt true, and this should be clarified, that the FCPA, which deals with conspiracy to commit offenses against the United States, does not indict Adani. That does not indict Adani. However, what Adani has been indicted in is conspiracy to commit security fraud, A, B, security fraud, and C, wire fraud. In all these three, they have been charged. Now, that is for me more worrying. I'll explain why. The FCPA is concerned with corruption of American officials. It's concerned with corruption on the United States soil. Adani has not been indicted for corruption of any American official. Frankly, if he was, it may not have concerned me as much as what does concern me, is that what he has been indicted for is corruption, is a securities fraud based on corruption of Indian government officials. That, according to me, is very serious. To say that there is no indictment against him is wishing away something which is totally untrue. There is a very serious indictment. The indictment is securities fraud, wire transfer fraud, conspiracy to securities fraud. And the basis of this is there was corruption of Indian government officials. Now, unlike India, where there's merely an FIR, and the FIR can just be the first report and action is thereafter taken, indictment in the United States requires a solid element of evidence, which of course is then to go forward and be proved or disproved, but definitely a strong prima facie reason for indictment. What has been produced according to the indictment are actual electronic exchanges, which in words seem to indicate corruption of Indian officials for the purpose of creating a happy scenario for entering the American securities market, which is why America is involved. Otherwise, the United States would not be involved if it's mere corruption of Indian officials with no repercussion on the United States. The whole case against them is there has been corruption of Indian officials, and based on this, the securities market has been tapped and approached in the United States and large monies raised. Now, that is a very serious indictment, and I would only like to summarize it with this one statement. If true, it is something which the present government, which has always stood so strongly against corruption, would definitely frown on, and I'm sure would take very strong action on, because this government has always stood against corruption and would definitely want an inquiry, would want an investigation if there was any corruption. On the other hand, since the whole world is full of this corruption of Indian officials. I feel an inquiry, an investigation is necessary, that if it is not true, that the name be cleared and India's reputation is restored. And I'm sure and I believe that this government would definitely take this very seriously, the indictment, have an inquiry, have an investigation, if nothing else, to show that, to tell the whole world that this is not so. But the indictment against them is there was corruption of Indian officials. The reason there's an indictment in the United States is the offshoot of that corruption was to falsely raise monies in the American market, which is why America is involved. As far as I'm concerned, as an Indian, I am concerned with that part of the indictment based on a lot of electronic exchanges of emails that Indian officials have been corrupted, Indian officials have been bought. And one way or the other, I believe this is something which warrants a very serious investigation in India.
Mr. Aryama and Sundaram, you won't believe there are any motives behind it. You take it at face value. You don't believe there are any larger motives at play here. Are those not important?
I have great faith in a judicial system of any democracy. I respect a judicial system, and I would wish and hope that our respect for a foreign judicial system would be as strong as we would want the foreign country to respect our judicial system. And therefore, at this juncture, I cannot say, let's just wish it away as though it did not happen. It has happened, and I believe it warrants a further investigation, definitely a further inquiry, maybe a commission of inquiry by a very respected retired Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I think something like that, or a retired judge of the Supreme Court, or a straightforward investigation to see whether there is a case for registration of a case under the Prevention of Corruption Act.
Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, opening the other side will be Mahesh Jethmalani. To summarize, though I don't need to, just to summarize some of the points for the viewers, not Mr. Jethmalani, Mr. Aryama Sundaram is not looking at the aspect of motive. He's saying, I'm going purely by what is there before me. Mr. Aryama Sundaram has repeated 4 times in his opening remarks that he is depending heavily on the fact that there is an electronic exchange of emails, which serves to establish the evidence of corruption of Indian officials. And he's mentioned that several times, and he has also spoken about the fact that this is a case of fraud in which the securities market in America has been misled by the Adani Group company. Ladies and gentlemen, please tighten your seat belts, because when there are long pauses between 2 lawyers, then you can expect fireworks in turn when the other gets their chance. Mahesh Jethmalani, please respond to the points made by Mr. Aryama Sundaram and the position you took earlier today.
Well, in sum and substance, Mr. Sundaram, my good friend, has vented outrage on something which doesn't exist. He says, as an Indian, he is concerned because Indian officials have been bribed. Now, if he were to read the indictment a little more carefully, he would realize that is not even the charge. The charge is conspiracy to bribe Indian officials. There's not a statement which alleges that any bribes have actually been paid. So this is a conspiracy which never came to fruition, if there was a conspiracy at all. There are 5 charges, none of them mention actual payment. That's a figment and a figment of Mr. Sundaram's indictment, or a misreading of the indictment. A figment of his imagination, or a misreading of the indictment. Now, the case is one of conspiracy to commit securities fraud in America. In short, the case is that the issuers of the bonds in America, US bonds, which is Adani Greens. And by the way, Adani Greens, who are the issuers of the bonds, have not even been mentioned as an accused in this case, right? But apart from that, the case is that they conspired to. And what do they conspire to do? They conspire to give bribes, and these bribes, which they don't say were given, induce the bondholders, the subscribers to the issued bonds, induce them to purchase them. had they known that there was going to be bribery or there was bribery, right, they would never have subscribed to these bonds. That in sum and substance is the case, right? Now, as a matter of fact, even for the conspiracy of charge, even for the conspiracy charge, there is not a shred of evidence. Mr. Sundaram may wax eloquent about, how outraged he is, but please tell him, he's read the indictment. Does the indictment contain a single documentary or oral piece of evidence regarding even the conspiracy? As far as the consummated offense of paying bribes, which he is so outraged about, there's not an iota of evidence. It's not even a charge in the case.
Is that true, Mr. Sundaram? Is that true that these allegations are merely based on hearsay? That there is no evidence provided in the indictment, then why should the allegations be taken seriously at all? Well, Mr. Sundaram is holding up some pages tonight. I would like to get my research team to get me a physical copy of the indictment. This is getting hotter than I thought. What are you showing in turn? Because Mr. Jethmalani says that you have nothing to prove that any bribe was actually paid.
Oh, I like that. I really enjoyed that. Because what Mr. Jethmalani says is, and trying to pick holes in the indictment, says, I say, the actual bribe was not paid. They only offered bribes. They only offered bribes. They went to the government officials and they said, please take some money, 3,000 crores, we're offering you X, Y, Z. I'm not quoting the figure. And I find it amusing, absolutely amusing that Mr. Jethmalani should say, oh no, there's nothing wrong in offering bribes to government officials. Why not? Why not? How can they be faulty for offering bribes? We live in a country where we should feel it's our birthright to offer bribes. I find it ridiculous. I'm sorry to say, my dear friend Tony, I must say, to say that, it only offered bribes, the indictment says very clearly that so much money was offered, and then there were emails regarding the offers, and thereafter contracts came to be signed. Mr. Jethmalani says, but where is the evidence to show the bank detail that the bribe was actually paid? It was only offered, and strange coincidence, after the offer, a contract is signed. Oh, what a strange coincidence. I would love to believe that the bribe was offered and refused, and yet the contract was signed. I'd love to believe it, which is why I started by saying we need to have an investigation in India. We need to have an inquiry. So that if, as Mr. Jethmalani says, we have government officials who say, sorry, I will not take a bribe. I'll sign the contract without a bribe, but I will not take the bribe. I want it to be stated to the world as to what a clean country we're in, which is why I'm saying I started with that. If true, we need to get to the bottom of corruption. If not true, we have to show the whole world that what Mr. Jethmalani says is that these officers who are offered bribes refused all the bribes, officials refused bribes, yet signed a contract at huge prices is perfectly justified. Because I can read the indictment for you, you will find very, very clearly that it says that offer of bribes and mention the people involved. They've mentioned it, they've referred to the electronic exchanges which offer these bribes. Well, beyond that, I really cannot say anything, because I cannot say today that these bribes were actually given, actually offered, actually taken. I can't say it. That is the purpose of investigation. I started with that. This is a case which warrants an investigation in India. How it turns out, if it turns out that this is all baseless, I would be the happiest person in the world. If on the other hand, it turns out it is correct, I would want those government officials definitely to be brought to book, because this is a government which we have in the country today, which has cleared so much corruption that there was in the past. And I would like this government to continue with that and to ensure that there is no corruption even now.
I would like Mr. Jethmalani to respond to the mix of satire and tearing attack by Aryama Sundaram, who was mocking you, Mr. Jethmalani, saying that you are actually endorsing the process of offering the bribes, which per se is against what has been written in the risk factors of the offering circular when they went to the US Securities Commission, point 104, that it says that it is a risk that employees may take actions that can expose Adani Green to liability under anti-bribery laws. The argument being made by the prosecutors is the Adani Group knew but did not reveal that their employees and themselves were taking actions which would expose them under anti-bribery laws. Now, bribery becomes the key issue in point, Mr. Jethmalani. And,
Yes.
and I need your counter to the fact that you are being accused of being a person who endorses an act of bribery or an act of inducement. As long as the act of inducement is not carried out, it is a mere fishing expedition which Mahesh Jethmalani supports. And Mr. Aryama Sundaram wants to have one more go at you. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Just one more minute.
1 minute.
I am reading paragraph 49.
Paragraph
Of the indictment, in furtherance of the bribery scheme,
49.
the co-conspirators, through Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani, Vineet Jain and others, had offered and promised to Indian government officials approximately 2,029 crore rupees, approximately 265 million in bribes, in exchange for Indian government officials causing the state electricity distribution companies to execute PSAs under the manufacturing-linked project, which would benefit the Indian energy companies' subsidiaries and the US issuer. Approximately 1,750 crore rupees of the corrupt payments was offered to foreign officials in exchange for foreign officials causing Andhra Pradesh state electricity distribution companies to agree to purchase 770 watts of so on. Now, according to me, the way I understand, Mr. Jethmalani, where does it say the bribe was actually paid?
1 minute.
It was offered, it was promised. We don't have proof of the payment. Yes, the contract was given after that. But like I said, if we can really show that these officials turned around and did the Vishwamitra action to Menaka and said, sorry, take that bribe away. I will anyway sign this contract. I'll be the happiest person in the world.
Okay. Mr. Jethmalani's turn, please.
Arnab, I need to rejoin a little bit. I think there are none so deaf who will not hear, right? I said that there are 5 charges. Not one of those 5 charges, right, say that bribes were paid. Not one of those charges. The charge is one of conspiracy. In narration, there's a little bit of hyperbole which is not supported. Not even the fact of conspiracy. Now, what is conspiracy? Conspiracy is an agreement to pay a bribe, right? First, no bribes were paid at all. There is not even a charge that bribes were paid. Absolutely clear. Mr. Sundaram I go by the indictment. I don't mock my opponents. I don't mock my co-panelists. There is not a shred of, there's not even a word, not a syllable which says that bribes were paid, right? There was a conspiracy to bribe public servants in India. There is not there are statements in the indictment, but there is not a shred of evidence. Please tell Mr. Sundaram, right, since he is so profuse about his support of this indictment, please tell me what is the evidence in support. As I said, there's nothing to suggest the substantive offense of bribery. But what is the evidence to even suggest that there was a conspiracy? I'm saying, A, there was no actual bribery. The indictment doesn't say so. The specific charge, and there are 5 of them, none of them say that there was actual bribery involved. None of the charges. There's a conspiracy, right? Even they don't know whether it actually fructified. I am saying even for that alleged conspiracy, Mr. Sundaram, there is not a shred of evidence. Please point out the evidence, unless you have blind faith in the indictment and those who have perpetrated that indictment.
Do I respond, Arnab?
Yes, sir, your turn.
Respond to see what the evidence is.
Well, if I look at the indictment, it refers to various mails.
Mails.
Starts with overt acts, paragraph 126. It refers to A.
Mr. Sundaram, will you stop giving us generics and give me specific evidence? Which document?
I am telling you specifically on or about
which document identified the conspiracy?
Can I?
You're a sharp lawyer. You know what evidence is.
1 minute, gentlemen.
Arnab, let me say one thing. I have to repeat what I started with. This is not a conviction. It is an indictment on certain evidence. Mr. Jethmalani is
so
right.
Mr. Sundaram,
As a criminal lawyer, let me finish. Let me just
evidence.
finish, Mr. Jethmalani. Just let me finish. Mr. Jethmalani is right in saying these are all matters which need to be proved and looked into and proved. I am adding one more fact to this. I am saying that these, so far as we as a country are concerned, are matters which warrant an inquiry in India.
Why?
It definitely warrants
to
an
plead the
inquiry in India. Like I said,
Plead the
if it is
indictment just
shown
because
that there was no
when we say that, Mr. Sundaram, may I?
Conspiracy to for corruption, and what has been stated in this indictment is totally wrong. I would like to have that conclusion. As an Indian, I would want that conclusion. But we must arrive at that conclusion without having even an inquiry or an investigation in India. Can we just wish this away? Or can we hope that if there is somebody who has come out with all this prima facie statement to show that there was such a conspiracy, that contracts were signed after bribes were offered, that we as a country would like to show the world that we don't take these kind of things lightly, that we definitely will have an inquiry, we will have an investigation which will show as to whether this is all, as Mr. Jethmalani would want us to believe, and I would want to believe what he's saying, this is all baseless. Then let's have that inquiry, let's have that investigation. Let's not wish it away by saying, look, this is an American nonsensical indictment, why should we even bother about it? The indictment is, whether we like it or not, that the securities fraud has arisen through corruption or, as Mr. Jethmalani would point out, perhaps attempted corruption, a conspiracy to corrupt in India. Whatever it is, it throws a blemish on us in India. And I believe that this government, without whatever Mr. Jethmalani or I saying, will in itself order an inquiry or an investigation.
Mr. Sundaram, there are 2 points that I would like to bring into the debate now. You are saying that based upon what somebody has said, our government needs to move into action. The conclusion would be that that somebody is someone who has the Indian criminal justice system, the Indian legal system, and the Indian judicial system under their thumb. Why should the Indian legal executive system be subservient to the American system? That's point number one. Point number two is, tomorrow, if a court in Bhopal indicts Elon Musk, how do you expect the American government to respond? We must be practical here and do everything possible to maintain the independence of our own criminal justice system, our own judicial system, and not make it subservient to that of the Americans. The second point is that these emails. Now, I come to the issue of these emails.
Arnab, I want to say something about those emails first, if I may.
Okay.
In paragraph 104 and 108, there's a reference to two emails, right? Take it from me that those emails are a part of the entire narration, right? But they have no probative value as to the charges made in the indictment. None. But there's a more serious issue. These are emails of an Indian citizen, right? And they have no probative value. I'm sure that the Adanis would not mind putting these in the public domain, all right? But because I've seen the narration about those emails, so I have some idea what they are about. Paragraphs 104 and 108. How does the Department of Justice get access to the private emails of Mr. Gautam Adani? These were not copied to anybody. This DOJ is the democratic deep state tapping our citizens. This is a serious offense in America. I countercharge that those who brought this indictment before the judge, who put it before the grand jury, right? I countercharge that there's been illegal hacking of emails in India.
One minute. Now you're bringing in a completely different angle, sir. Can you 1 minute, Mr. Jethmalani? Now you have brought in a completely different dimension to this debate.
Yes.
And I hope that you are doing so
I'm doing this
with some information that you have which we don't have access to.
Yes. No,
you are saying...
I am making a counter charge loud and clear.
On what
the
basis?
Department of Justice in America, right? With full responsibility and complete accountability in case I made a false allegation.
This is breaking news.
104 and 108 refer to private emails of Mr. Gautam Adani in India. They were not copied to anybody.
1 minute. Page number or paragraph 104 and 108. 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a hot debate. I'm extending this by 15 minutes. Too many people are on the call right now. Too many viewers streaming. Let this stop and take a break. This is going to be extended.
Mr. Sundaram thinks that there's a halo around the American judicial system. I don't. I'm not, as I said before, I'm not an insect of the computer class. Everything that emanates from America is not worthy of sainthood.
If I understand, Tony, if I understand you right, after what I said, that this warrants an inquiry in India, do I take it that you're not in agreement that it warrants even an inquiry in India or an investigation in India? From my understanding, I'm asking you that.
Listen, I am not going to say anything on that aspect. If we are not on that aspect right now, we are on the
only aspect I'm on.
No,
that is the only aspect I'm on. I said arrive at guilt or innocence from this. I want an investigation and an inquiry to look into it.
Aryaman, 1 minute. He's responding.
Don't rattle on. I'll answer your question. According to me, any indictment without evidence is not worth the paper on which it's written. You may think that there's something sacrosanct about an indictment. I said indictment without evidence is not worth the paper it's written on. Don't waste Indian judicial time and investigate authorities' time.
But he refers to emails.
You're not able to point out what evidence even discloses the conspiracy.
But he says there are emails. There are emails, Mahesh.
Yes.
Emails which are the evidence. The emails are the evidence, Mahesh.
Who says so?
And records of meetings.
Aryama Sundaram says so. On the
Sundaram says so. I'm giving you 2 paragraphs and 104.
He also...
Not pointing out
104, which paragraph are you... 1 minute. I have 104 before me. You've referred to 104 numerous times. The offerings...
There are emails which could only have been got by American hacking, by the DOJ hacking, by whoever put this case before. Those emails are referred to. I am now talking about the documents. Mr. Sundaram doesn't bring documents to prove the conspiracy charge, let alone actual bribery. I am now saying that the personal emails, how did the Department of Justice or whoever placed them before the judge concerned, the Department of Justice, how did they obtain these private emails of an Indian citizen?
I need 1 minute. We are now, may I say so tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that for all the people out there who say that, you know, people are not interested in deep news, let me say this in the middle of this feisty and hot debate, that the thousands of people tuning in to watch this debate between Mahesh Jethmalani and Aryama Sundaram, including, I am told, many law students who are now tuning in, law students commenting on this debate, saying this is the kind of conversation we need to have. And for that, I'm grateful to both these gentlemen for making it happen. Now, I need to go back to Mr. Aryama Sundaram. Please, Mahesh, with your permission. You'll have to give me 10 minutes. This is getting too big. Mr. Sundaram, I wish your response on the point that Mr. Jethmalani says. He says that there has been espionage, that the Department of Justice has hacked the emails of the Adani group, and therefore he has cast a shadow over the emails which you have referred to as evidence. Could you please respond to that point he's made?
Let me respond to it straight away. I will take what Mr. Jethmalani says. I will take it that it was hacking, that these emails were illegally acquired, that it really casts a huge blemish on the American system for adopting such methods, unlawful methods, to garner such private emails. I accept all that, but the fact is, those emails were got. Now, as far as I'm concerned as an Indian, while I'm equally upset, as Mr. Jethmalani is, by the fact that there would be hacking in the United States of private emails, as an Indian, I'm equally concerned that if those emails or records of meetings or otherwise disclose any possibility of corruption of Indian officials, and if such a possibility is disclosed, although the disclosure came out through illegally tapping any of these emails, as an Indian citizen interested in clean government, I am keen that this is investigated and inquired. I am not giving a judgment on the matter. I am not concluding on the matter, but I certainly feel that what is there warrants us as a country to say, look here, let's look into this, to see if there's any basis in which we should take action, or to see that there is no basis and clean our names. I feel that should not be objected to.
Mr. Aryama Sundaram, is there a possibility
Now, before you step in, just one question, just one response. I say, right, that the two emails the two paragraphs containing emails, right, they are innocuous. But I say that primarily our thrust should not be on what is supposed to have happened in India, because even they don't allege what's happened in India. I think first, the Americans should clean up their own audience tables. First, tell us. I put it as a primary issue. This is breach of privacy, something about which I'm sure Mr. Sundaram feels very strongly about. Wiretapping. Right? I'm sure you do, Aryaman. Yes, all right.
Of course, I agree with you.
Yeah. I'm saying first, please tell us. I want to know what this Department of Justice is up to. And at whose behest? Because I'll tell you why. 1 year ago, Mr. Sundaram, Hindenburg came into the picture and did a short sale just before Parliament. The timing is suspect. It happened again just before Parliament. This is not coincidental. It is not coincidental. One event of timing is a coincidence, mere coincidence. Two does not. This means this is a pre-concerted conspiracy. Somebody in the democratic deep state, right, is interested in making sure, it's a scorched earth policy before Biden demits office, that Adani has no future in the business with the US government. A. B. Last time we exposed, people thought Hindenburg had exposed Adani and the short sale he was responsible for. Hindenburg's principal, who used Kotak as the brokers in India, right? Their principals were a trust owned by a gentleman called Michael Langdon, right? Now this Michael, we thought, was the face of the principal. His wife was one Anla Chen, who the Americans, right? And she was the joint holder of that trust. She was a very influential lady in New York. She was exposed as being somebody who was conducting espionage activities for China. That's the kind of principals, whom the Congress party is depending on. The same people.
Now, when you mean Congress party, 1 minute. 1 minute. You're moving very fast. 1 minute. No, Mahesh Jethmalani, the problem is, please, just go a little slow.
Okay.
This is like a Rafael Nadal serve. Please understand. These are volleys going on both sides, and let the umpire step in. You're moving very fast. You went from American deep state to Trump coming in, Biden going out, scorched earth policy, right? And then you have quickly moved on to the Congress party. You are therefore making a charge that this has got nothing to do with a pure investigation on a corporate. This is all country versus country stuff. This is one political establishment in America that is on its way out, attacking the present political establishment in the country indirectly. Are you saying that?
Yes,
Are you
I'm
saying that?
I am saying that. I am saying that this has been a feature. I don't know what happened after Prime Minister Modi got an excellent reception, right, in America in 2023, a bipartisan, hundreds applause for his speech and his appearance, right? Something went wrong after that, right? Biden has turned rogue. The Biden administration, I don't mean President Joe Biden himself, the Biden administration turned rogue. I think with the approaching elections, they were looking for a constituency of the very left as the very left wing of the Democratic Party. Now, this is all speculation, so I don't want to put it as fact, right? And
Free,
they
I told you.
reached out to elements in America, right? Who were a significant constituency and would have supported the Democratic Party. They reached out to them and tried to further their electoral prospects. Now, the fact of what I'm coming to is, Anla Chen, right? Nobody has denied that she was the principal behind the 2023. Nobody in America. In fact, the present Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, right? He is the person who's investigated. There's a congressional investigation into this Chinese spy for furthering Chinese activities. So what you have is the principal in the last hit, the Hindenburg hit of 2023, the principal, right? And I can tell you something. I have had a call that the brokers involved, right? The brokers involved claim they didn't know that there was a Chinese principal behind this. And we all know who the brokers are.
So, Mr. Sundaram, what's happened in the last 3 minutes of the debate is that Mr. Jethmalani has turned it around into a debate on deep state, geostrategy, grand strategy. You're trying to stay clear on the legal point. Having said that, may I, Mr. Aryama Sundaram, bring your attention in the closing part of this debate to point number 105 of this indictment, which you've been reading throughout. In point 05, sir, in para 105, sorry, it seems that the US attorneys want to imply that the Adani group knew about the bribes while they made a declaration. Now, what is the declaration they made? They made a standard practice declaration saying that while the group maintains anti-bribery compliance, some employees may take matters into their own hands that may lead to anti-bribery liability. So very good. But the proprietors and shareholders are not involved. What the American attorneys want to imply is that while they made this declaration, they were simultaneously endorsing the act of bribing. Now, the point is, they haven't yet accused Mr. Gautam Adani, Mr. Sagar Adani, or Mr. Vineet Jain of bribery. Therefore, I fail to understand that where is the crime here? When there is a fair disclosure within the disclosure statement of the Adani group about possible attempts by employees to break anti-corruption laws, which may be a risk factor for the company.
Arnab,
Sir.
Let me make one thing very clear. The charge, as I started off, there is no indictment against the Adanis for corruption of any American official to bring it within the FCPA. Equally, if there was corruption of Indian officials, which had no bearing on the securities market in the United States at all, then the United States is not involved. It's only India to be involved. You read paragraph 105, but thereafter there are paragraphs 121, 22, 23, which I read to you earlier, in which they say that there was, and they have gone on a basis that the evidence, according to them, may be wrong, points to corruption of Indian officials resulting in contracts being signed, which became security for the purpose of raising funds in the United States, which is why they've called it a security fraud, not corruption, because corruption of an Indian official is nothing to do with the United States. If there's a security fraud in the United States, it concerns them. In arriving at the conclusion that a proceeding should be initiated and they should be indicted for security fraud, the foundation for that was that there was corruption in India, resulting in contracts which were then used as the basis, as the security to raise monies, and that was the security fraud. And like I said,
Sir,
that there was corruption in India, to be proved or not to be proved, is not the American business at all, unless they had a direct bearing on a securities fraud, in which case they get involved.
I would like to...
My concern is, it's something India. And I would say every Indian should be concerned enough to say,
what I'm concerned...
look, let's have an
what I'm also concerned about, what I'm concerned about as well, Mr. Sundaram, is wiretapping, interception, use of intercepted material. You know, and I look at this point here very seriously, that if there is an admission or acknowledgement that there has been interception of Adani company documents, then it's entirely possible that the only persons who would be carrying out the interception would be the American state, which means, who else would? One minute. Who else would? Mr. Sundaram. Mr. Sundaram, who else would? Yes, my point being, Mr. Sundaram, allow me for a minute, please. I'm saying that, Mr. Sundaram, therefore, who else would? We are all three of us are in agreement that the American government has intercepted the communications of the Adani group. Governments have fallen in America over wiretapping, sir. Why should, therefore, my next question would be, 1 minute, sir, 1 minute. Why is the American government getting involved in the wiretapping of the Adani group? Is that legal? How does that become legal? So is an act of illegality is one act of illegality, can it be presumed, to end my point here, that the people who've carried out the wiretapping have not done so without motive? Therefore, we circle back to the issue of motive. We circle back, Mr. Sundaram, we come back to the issue of intent and motive in this case. What is the motive behind the American government wiretapping the communications of the Adani group?
Arnab,
I want to give Mr. Sundaram a response, and then you come in, please. 1 minute.
Arnab,
yes.
The way I take it and what you say,
yes,
is if there was wiretapping in the United States,
yes,
of the Adani emails, it is heinous. If the American law allowed them to do it, and by their laws, if they'd followed the system, even in India, telephone tapping is heinous. However, there is a procedure under law, it can be done. Now, we don't know how that was done, but I'll take it that what you're saying is right, that they did not follow their procedure and illegally wiretapped. I don't believe that can be true, because they have their own system of wiretapping, like in India. We have our own system by which you can wiretap, even in India. Now, let's take it that it was wrongly done. But the factum of those mails, the factum of the evidence of meetings, that factum cannot be wished away. And while we can say and shout out from the skies that America has invaded our privacy and the wiretapping was wrong and the Adani's wires were wrongly hacked, their mails were wrongly hacked, I am concerned with the fact is, if that hacking disclosed a corruption in India, I am very concerned about the corruption in India.
How do I know what has been used selectively or not selectively?
And the American government for wiretapping. Equally clean up if there was corruption in India. That is my entreaty. That is my entreaty to all of you. That's my only entreaty. Clean up those accusations of corruption in India.
Arnab, just three things. I want to make 3 points, right?
Or clean it up.
I don't blame Mr. Sundaram, right? Because he's only seen the indictment. Now, I just want to make 3 points, right? First point is that these emails, which are referred to in 104 and 108, and could only have been obtained by hacking, right? Those emails are innocuous. They don't prove the charge. They're not relevant at all. But the fact of wiretapping is extremely, as even Mr. Sundaram agrees, a heinous of, issue, heinous offense, right? Now, forget that. That's the wiretapping issue. But I want to ask you, and in any case, in America, the Department of Justice should have applied its mind, right? Or at least the judge should have, who issued the indictment, saying, oh my God, there are private emails. Perhaps we should find out how they were obtained. Because in America, they have something which can't be used in an indictment because it becomes what's called, they have a theory called the fruits of the poison tree. If something is obtained illegally, it cannot be used as evidence, right?
How do we know it was obtained illegally? If the judges accepted it for the indictment, how can you assume it was legally obtained? Anyway, I don't want to get into that debate at all. We are talking about the accusation of corruption of Indian officials.
I want to make an extremely important point now, right? And this probably nails the malafide of this entire indictment. You had all this from 2022, right? It's an ongoing investigation. You had no proof, as is evident, that bribes were in fact paid, right? I'm talking about the Department of Justice, that holy cow, which Mr. Sundaram so reveres, right? I want to tell you that this Department of Justice was sitting on this evidence. They could not, by any principle of comity, the Department of Justice inform over 2 years the Indian government or the concerned authorities that please investigate. We have evidence of conspiracy. We have evidence of conspiracy. 1 minute, Arnab, let me finish this. It's very important. We have evidence of conspiracy, but we don't know whether it's fructified, right? Please examine this.
I think that what is happening.
1 minute, Arnab, just one more thing. I know you're running out of time. Just right? Why place it? All these years you don't say anything. You don't bring it to the notice of the Indian authorities. But you place it, you reveal it in public, you issue the indictment 2 days before Parliament is to sit.
Mr. Sundaram, is that relevant? Mr. Sundaram, is that relevant? Mr. Sundaram, he refers to the political timing. Is that relevant? Isn't that relevant?
Let me tell you as a lawyer, I'm not a politician. Tony is a great politician. I'm not. Not being a politician, let me tell you as a lawyer, when I have a bad case, I always plead conspiracy against me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
But that's what they pleaded, conspiracy. They have a bad case. It's only conspiracy.
Okay, now viewers, this has been, I would say this is a crazily good debate tonight. It is an incredible debate. I don't think the two gentlemen on the screen have realized how they've let sparks fly and the kind of viewership this has got. So I've extended this to double the time. And viewers, in case you missed it, tell everyone, you're not going to get this. This is classic. I mean, this is.
Arnab, Tony and I happen to be the best of friends.
Yes,
He
yes.
also tells me that.
Yeah, this is Foreman versus Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson versus that YouTuber, whatever you call it. This is great. But this has lit up my screen and it's live again at 10 o'clock tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, to these great friends and great advocates. We are so proud of having such intellectual and legal giants in our court. Thank you, Aryaman. Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much. And ladies